go!
The final event of the 8-race-long series in the ABSA Off-Road Championship was the 2006 Ford Carnival City 400, and it was a showdown and a showerdown of note. This race somehow aggravates the rain gods, and all without as much as one dance step. The heavens traditionally open on this one and therefore makes things very interesting indeed. The gambling complex, the biggest on the East Rand, however, is always decked out in its finest for the final stopover on the national off-road calendar. And the already colourful livery of the complex was livened up even more as the 86 cars were driven to the compound to get those vital last-minute settings, tyre inflations, and the all-important sponsors branding down. Even though the overall production car championship and the special vehicle category had been settled and was firmly back in the hands of Hannes Grobler and Alfie Cox respectively after the previous round in the Toyota Dealer 400 in Leidenburg, there was a lot to race for. The prestigious manufacturer's trophy was still up for grabs after Nissan had closed the gap significantly on points leader Toyota and Mpumalanga, and there were several other big battles on the cards. As for the Motorride crew, they had their beady eye on an unprecedented 1-2-3 in the special vehicle category in the overall championship, a feat that no other team had achieved before, but they would not have it all their own way. And the weather in and around Brakpan was looking ominous before the start of the 40-kilometer-long prologue. In the production vehicles, it looked like this, with Grobler and his co-driver Francois Jordan enjoying a 24-point lead. But crews are asked to drop one event's points from the season when the racing is completed, and that left the three-time champ Grobler with the title in the bag. In the manufacturer's title race, Nissan were exactly 20 points in arrears, thanks largely to the Toyota privateers going well beyond the call of duty. At the top of the open cockpit vehicle category, motorbike supremo Alfie Cox added national title number 26 to his CV, with teammates Brandon Harkis and Evan Hutchinson second and third. At the start of the 40k long prologue, which would determine start times the next day for the two loops of the 180 kilometers each, drivers, navigators, team managers and mechanics knew that the incessant rain that had soaked the entire Highveld in the preceding week would be the deciding factor, forcing some teams to race differently to their normal style. But no one told Duncan Voss and Ralph Pitchford that. For them, it was water bombs away. For Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schalthammer and the big Ford Ranger, there was still the small matter of the new SP class, which they were leading ahead of Grobler and Jordan due to the vagaries of the point system. Whatever the case may have been, Jacques Cousteau would have felt extremely happy in these conditions. The second proudly South African Nissan Navara with two more SA champs, brand new as it was, Hannes Grobler and Francois Jordan aboard, sitting pretty. They were backing up Voss in their stable. For the Toyota Works team of Mark Grenier and Chris Birkin and the Toyota 4-litre Hilux, it's been a season to forget, starting off with a few no-shows in the year and ending with a little to write home about. And for their teammates Bev and Berthold and his navigator Robin Houghton, it's also been a quiet year. They had one more tilted winning and breaking the Toyota victory duck. Ditto for Rob Gurney and Graham Steinbach, who in their Ford Ranger had 3 non-finishes out of the 7 races that had been contested in the year 2006. However, their teammates Manfred Schroeder and Ward Huxtable had clinched the Class E National Championship, but Schroeder had to sit this one out due to a broken collarbone after his exploits on his son's quad bike ended in disaster. But the waterlogged countryside on the western outskirts of the East Rand was tough to negotiate on 4 wheels, whether it was the production cars or the specials. Even a scrambler would have been hard-pressed in these conditions, actually. That's Cliff and Louis Weichelt spinning to a grinding halt. But father and son Hicho and Jaap de Bruin had no such problems and stormed home to lead the Class D contingent in the 19th place overall. Clearly, the conditions were slightly more suited to the space frame vehicles, which could negotiate the mud and the H2O a little easier. For Motorrad team manager Evan Hutchison and his co Kim Bergman, there's only one speed, full tilt ahead. And by the way, remember that there's no windscreen here. This is a continuous shower. For the Atlas Copco crew, Gary Bertolt and Henry Costain, there was bad news as they had just been told of their relegation to third place after their provisional win in the Toyota Dealer 400. Cox and Testeja and Hutchison and Bergman were placed ahead of the DO after they'd left the designated service point too early. They had a lot to prove. Horse racing pundits would have called it heavy going, and it was. Harkus, the overall winner of the Western Cape race in Darling in car with Marcel Trethroui, had all his days trying to control that 6-litre bat and got it to listen to him long enough to take 8th place, 2 minutes and 11 seconds down. Colin Matthews and Bodo Bertel piloted their green Gondwana Steel back to a respectable 10th place overall with some steely driving. While Cox and Testeja just did what they normally did, fly along at breakneck pace. The Red Rapsa bat of Nardus Alberts and Colin Hunter was just less than 2 minutes down at the line, and they also found it hard going out there. Engines were hard pressed, what with all this wheel spinning going on. Gerard and Kobe du Plessis Hitachi Jimco surprised all and sundry with a blistering 32-minute 32-second clocking, which left them 4th in class. There was very little place to choose where it was dry, or at least drier. Here are Nassau Mobile Racing's Terence Marsh and Michael Whitehouse, who sent spectators scurrying for a safer and drier vantage point. With Shamir Variawa and VZ Van Sail with a massive 7-litre Porter in the colours of Total Motorsport behind them, but on their way to a 7th place overall. Father and son Gareth and Rob Walk in the Super Pave bat had one of their better prologues and clinched the 9th place overall. While the absolute bat of Clint Gibson and Mike Brown was very solid in these exacting conditions. The Chevy engine of John Moore and Ashley Thorne and the Leo Connex Internet Free Spirit sounded great as it hurried to a 10th place in Class A. They were to have their best outing of the year. With the rain harder than ever, the veteran Richard Schilling and his nav Chris Davies had their one eye on the road and the other on the championship. They needed a good finish to clinch the Class S crown. But they would be chased all the way by Archie Rutherford and Craig Doubtfire combination in the second National Mobile Race Go. With just a few points separating them and Nick Gosler in the Kopenhagen entry, there was going to be a lot to play for. In Class B, it was Marcus Taylor and Mark de Chalane who were setting the pace in their JRE, with a double track resembling a little river. SA champions Chris Visser and Jaapie Badenhorst were the biggest casualties of the prologue. They had mechanical problems and they took maximum penalties after failing to get to the line. In a continuous spray of muddy rainwater, the Raysonics Nissan crew Kutsia Labaskachny and Johan Gerber also disappointed and finished 50th overall, 16 minutes down in class. And in the single-seaters, young Brett Gurney took his Sandmaster to 36th place overall and 4th in Class B, a fine drive. For Naim Mosaji and Rehan Bodjana, it was a good day at the office and they were in 13th place in the A-class. For the BB Auto pairing of Arnold du Plessis and Johan Knox in the 3.3-litre Nissan Diesel, there was a 3rd place in class, but they were 7 minutes down, quite a margin to give away at the beginning of the next day. And in the Adenko Bat stable, Bez Besaidnout and Johan de Bruin kept the flag flying in 25th place overall, just 52 seconds behind the Class B leader, Taylor and de Chalane. there were no less than 4 crews in with a title shot here. Just a further 2.5 minutes back, the Century Properties development spat of Ernest Corbett and Warwick Goosen were steady as she goes. Championship glints in their eye too, but sometimes the job required diving goggles.
Is it not obvious to see?
I don't think you must ask her.
This is not an amphibious
Because you can see
vehicle.
we play like kids. Ridiculous. Huh?
The lads were getting stuck like fat gets stuck in deep-fried chicken, and there were many who tried the exercise. Some got through though on mercy and a lot of luck. Others looked like old LPs on a turntable. They just kept spinning. But with the right pace, weight distribution and clever steering, it could be done. And as the old Beatles song goes, with a little help from my friends, it's finally out and on the way again. The Swaziland crew of John Thompson and Clint McNamara were very positive on entry in this quagmire, but they also got bogged down, getting the back axle packed with mud right past the last bolt in the process. At DSP, there was a sigh of relief as cars eventually got back, but 11 of them never got to savor that experience. The mud was so severe.
We've pulled the time trial, so we'll be leaving first. I don't know how much of an advantage it's going to be tomorrow because it's very muddy and slippery out there. And as we speak again, the rain is coming down, so it's going to be very trying conditions tomorrow. We've pulled it once or twice this year, and it's difficult to run from the front. The marking today didn't seem too bad, so hopefully the marking's good tomorrow. They'll be able to keep us in the front. But I think the winner of tomorrow's race is going to be the guy who has the least amount of mistakes and has a little bit of luck on his side. But we'll wait to see the confirmation on the time trial times. But I've got Alfie 2 positions behind me. Yeah, we just have to see what tomorrow brings. But it's definitely going to be a tough day. It's definitely going to be tough, and it's definitely going to be wet and muddy.
And after that appeal court decision, the battle lines have been drawn.
Yeah, I think we seem to be okay. Evan got us by about 15 seconds, and Alfie is about 25 seconds behind us, so we're in between the two. A lot of rain, very wet event. I think tomorrow's going to be the luck of the draw. By the time the guys get to those big mud patches, it's going to be a very tough day tomorrow in all that mud.
And as they say, good weather for ducks. Alfie, in the meantime, was ducking the pressure.
Yeah, well, having won the championship already, coming to this race, I've got no pressure. But every time I get in this motorized bat, it's just so much fun. But it is perfect position where I am, and a bit of controversy. Gary made a mistake at the last race. He was penalised for it. He believed he had won. So I think tomorrow we've got to go out and show Gary that we can do it. So tomorrow I think it's war between the Atlas Copter vehicle of Gary Berthold, and then I'm going to try and help Evan to come second in the championship. So we got 1, 2, 3.
All mapped out for Motorite, but how were things in the rest of the camps? Upbeat and grafting at Ford's enclosure. The Toyota boys were rehydrating, and at Nissan, it was conservative.
We were first on the road, so maybe we were a bit conservative. We not battled, but we had to find the route in certain sections, and I think that maybe cost us a bit of time. But we had a good time trial. We second out of the production cars, which is a good place to start in. And we're amongst the space frames tomorrow, so there's going to be a great race between the first sort of 15 cars. But the Toyota's ahead of us, starting ahead of us tomorrow, so obviously we'll find our feet in the first couple of Ks and then try and chase him down.
But the top prize was still uppermost in the racing minds.
We definitely have to go for the manufacturer's award on this race. It's a close competition in between Nissan and Toyota, and we're going to try and win it for Nissan. And we've also got the class championship still that's a little bit it's open in between us and the Ford. So we just need to finish in any case to win that as well.
And what about the weather predictions?
Well, looking at the sky at the moment, it's looking ominous. I think it might be a rain suit and just a little bit of survival out there and see whether you can bring it home. If it stays dry, I think it could turn into a really nice event. I think it could turn into something where it could turn into a bit of a dogfight. I think it's going to be the fastest car win here tomorrow, because if this place dries up, it's going to be a hammer and tong battle between the boys out front, without any doubt.
So clearly everyone knew where they stood with just 360 k's worth of racing left in the 2006 season. A 50-second victory for the Toyota Dio, with the two Nissans which were destined to follow in their tracks in the wet. Woolwich and Schottheimer were almost 2 minutes down. In the special vehicle category, there was only 12 ticks of the clock in it, with the Atlas Copco team sandwiched by the Motorride Crews and a lot of needle in the first 30 seconds up there. Harkes took 7th place for his team very neatly. The Ford Carnival City 400 continues.